Hey there, and welcome to MurderTube. Our case today is a very strange one, and it's left everyone confused. Did this girl plan to disappear? Did she succumb to the cold weather? Maybe she was suicidal. Or maybe what happened to her was much more sinister. Killed by a lover? Abducted by someone? Maybe she fell victim to a serial killer. This is the case of Maura Murray. Moira was born on the 4th of May 1982. Around the time of her disappearance, she was attending the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She would be 21 years old at the time, around 5'7", 120 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. This leads us to the evening of February 9th, 2004. There were no university classes this day due to a snowstorm. Moira emailed her boyfriend letting him know that she would call him later on, and then she made some other phone calls trying to make reservations at either a condo or a hotel. She would then email her university to let them know that she would be gone for about a week due to a death in her family. Except there was no death in her family. She packed her car with some clothes, textbooks, birth control pills, and some toiletries, and then she left her dorm. It was around 3:40 p.m. when she stopped at a local ATM. She withdrew the $240 out of her account. This was pretty much all of the money in her account. She would then stop at a local liquor store and pick up about $40 worth of alcohol. It was somewhere between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. that she left Amherst. Her phone would be used for the very last time at 4:37 p.m. when she checked her voicemail. While driving on Route 112 in North Haverhill, Moira crashed her car into a snowbank at around 7:25 p.m. Some nearby residents heard the crash, and a few of them could see from their window that there was a vehicle in the ditch. One of the neighbors called 911 at around 7:27 p.m. This neighbor could make out that someone was in the vehicle, and they could see a small red glowing light. At first they believed this was maybe someone smoking, but it was later believed that it was a cell phone or a cell phone charger, as Moira was likely trying to call for help. Just a few minutes later, another neighbor was returning home in his school bus, and he stopped next to the vehicle. He asked Moira if she needed any help, if she wanted to come to his house to wait for help, if she needed him to call 911, but Moira refused any help from him, and she told him that she had already called AAA and she was just waiting for someone to show up. This neighbor knew that there really was no cell reception in this area, so when he got home, he called 911 himself. AAA received no phone calls about this car accident. The first police officer arrived at the scene at 7:46 p.m., about 10 minutes after the bus driver left. Moira had vanished. The car was locked. There was a rag stuffed in the exhaust pipe. Red wine had been spilled inside the vehicle. Her cell phone and wallet were not in the vehicle. And also, the other bottles of alcohol that she had purchased earlier that day were also missing from the vehicle. Police did a quick drive around the area to see if Moira could be located walking along a road looking for help, but she was not seen anywhere. By 8:49 p.m., the vehicle was towed and the scene was cleared. Scent dogs were used the following day, however they were only able to track her scent for about 100 yards east of her vehicle. Police, FBI, and private citizens and investigators have continued to look into this case for the past 18 years. Moira's case is still, to this day, listed as a missing person, with the disappearance considered suspicious. So, what really happened to Moira? Well, there are numerous theories, each with their own support and evidence. Let's start with a theory of Moira either wanting to disappear or that she was suicidal. And for this, we're going to need to first look into who Moira was and some of her history. When she had finished high school, Moira joined the United States Military Academy at West Point, where she would study chemical engineering. During her freshman year, she received an honor code violation for stealing makeup from the commissary. She was not formally expelled, however, she transferred to UMass to study nursing. 3 months prior to her disappearance, Moira was charged for using a stolen credit card to make some food takeout orders. This charge would be dismissed after 3 months of good behavior. On the 5th of February 2014, while working her campus security job, Moira took a phone call and became hysterical. A supervisor had to escort Moira back to her dorm room. This call was from her sister, and it was in regards to her sister's alcohol addiction. The weekend before her disappearance, her father came to visit her, as he often does. They planned to go car shopping for her, as her vehicle was in pretty bad shape, but they didn't have enough money to buy the vehicle they liked. Moira would borrow her father's vehicle to go out to a party. When returning home at 3:30 a.m., Moira crashed the car into a guardrail, causing about $8,000 worth of damage to the car. No ticket was issued for this, and the police report shows that a sobriety test was not even conducted. It is speculated that drink driving was the cause of this accident, but we really can't know for sure. In Moira's dorm room, her belongings had been packed into boxes. Even the art was no longer on the walls. There was a printed email in her dorm suggesting relationship issues between her and her boyfriend. She didn't tell a single friend or family member about the trip she was about to take. She didn't want neighbors calling the police for the car accident, likely for fear of being in trouble again. Another person at UMass had claimed that he and Moira were in a secret relationship, and that she had previously suggested to him that at some point she wanted to disappear. Moira had recently searched the effects of alcohol on a fetus. Maybe she was pregnant. A school friend claims that this search was for a research for a school project. So, the stress of a nursing program, a troubled relationship, alcohol issues in the family, multiple minor run-ins with law enforcement, maybe it was all just becoming way too much and she needed a fresh start. Or at least some time alone for a week or so in a different location. Some people believe that Moira's plan was to disappear. That after her car crash, she hitchhiked to another town, and then she continued the next step of her plan. Or that there was a second vehicle traveling with her. Once her vehicle became stuck, she was forced to get into the second vehicle with the person helping her. But witnesses did not notice a second vehicle nearby. This could explain why Moira's scent trail was only available for about 100 meters from her vehicle, and the alcohol may have been taken out of her car to limit the thought that the accident was due to drink driving. The other side of these theories are that she was depressed, manic, not acting rationally, or that she was maybe suicidal. Moira's previous run-ins with law enforcement suggest that she can at times be impulsive and make bad decisions. Perhaps her decisions cannot really be reasoned with. If she was at a breaking point, she may have been acting irrationally and impulsively, and this was all just spur-of-the-moment decisions. She wouldn't have wanted police involved in her car accident due to any further legal issues. So once she crashed, one of two things may have happened. Fearing the police would be called by the bus driver, she quickly grabbed her main items and walked down the road until hiding somewhere in the forest from any approaching vehicles. She could eventually get lost in the wilderness and succumb to the cold weather. Or the car crash was the final breaking point. She was done. She would walk into the woods to die. She took a cell phone, maybe wanted to make a farewell call but couldn't due to no cell service, took her wallet so she could easily be identified, and took the alcohol so that she could drink and numb the pain and just end everything. It's also worth noting that the rag in the tailpipe was believed to have been put in after the car crash, that it would not have stayed in while driving. It would not have really worked as a means of suicide, So most believe Moira did this to help limit the smoke from her exhaust, to make the conditions of the car not appear as bad as it was, in hopes of limiting the chances of nearby people calling the police. Or maybe she put it in there as a means of suicide, but realizing that it wasn't going to be very effective, that it would take a long time. She didn't really have that kind of time when her vehicle is crashed on the side of the road and people are driving by, so she changed her plan and went into the wilderness instead. Numerous extensive searches, as well as helicopter searches with thermal imaging, have been conducted in the wild surrounding the car crash. If Moira did die in there, no signs have been found yet. Just last year, human bone fragments were found near Loon Mountain. These bone fragments were not those of Moira. So then, perhaps Moira was kidnapped or murdered. Some theories are that Moira was the victim of a hit and run. While walking away from her vehicle trying to get cell service, a vehicle accidentally hit Moira. Panicking, the driver put Moira's body in their vehicle to hide and dispose of it at a different location. If this is what happened, there likely would have been some evidence nearby. Also, what happened to the alcohol? Why put that into their vehicle also? Another theory is that she was abducted by someone. They offered to give her a ride into town and they never let her go. It's possible she would have been more likely to accept this kind of help, as the police wouldn't have been involved. However, for this to have happened, it would have to be a perfect storm. Someone capable of doing something like this had to have been driving through that area the same time that Moira had an accident, and they would have had just a small 10-minute window before police have arrived, and no neighbors saw any other kind of vehicle stop. So that leads us into some of the last theories with specific suspects. Some believe that Moira's boyfriend, Bill Roche, I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly or not, may have killed her. He would not have been able to have caused the car crash or have even been there immediately after the crash. However, he was in the area for a number of days afterwards. He was helping to search for Moira, but he was not really with the other main search parties. His phone was off for 5 days afterwards. After his initial search for Moira, he's never really searched again. The UMass Outing Club owned a cabin in the direction of where Moira was traveling. If she was enacting her plan of disappearing, perhaps her accomplice helped her reach this cabin as a temporary location. This same accomplice maybe confessed to Bill of what Moira was planning on doing. While pretending to help search for Moira, Bill could have turned his phone off and visited the cabin. In a fit of rage, he may have murdered her. Knowing that police had no idea of where Moira was, it would have been pretty easy and a pretty good opportunity for Bill to hide the body somewhere. In later years, Bill was convicted of felony sexual assault against a different lady. In late 2004, a man by the name of Larry Moulton handed a knife to Moira's father. Larry claimed this knife belonged to his brother Claude, and that this knife was likely the murder weapon of Moira. The knife was handed over to the police who ran tests on it. The results of those tests were never released to the public. Claude lived in a home not far from the accident. His brother claims that he is a violent man and into shady things. Claude was interviewed by police as well as took a lie detector test, but nothing really came of it. Some family members claim that Larry was just doing this as a way of trying to get some of the reward money by implicating his brother. Our next varied suspect is a local contractor by the name of Rick Forcier. Nearly 3 months after the disappearance, Rick came forward stating that he saw someone the night of the disappearance, jogging, between 8 and 8:30 p.m. This person matched the description of Moira, and this was about 5 miles east of the crash location. He claims he did not initially report this sighting due to not really remembering that it was that specific night. Some people don't believe Rick's sighting, as they believe more evidence suggests that she had gotten into another vehicle near the crash, and that's why her scent trail stopped. So maybe Rick later gave this fake sighting in an attempt to draw attention away from him picking Moira up in his truck that night. Rick has also claimed that he was sleeping on the couch at the time. How could he have driven past her if he was sleeping? And Rick has made some sick jokes and comments to some of the locals. Things like Moira wanted to have sex with him, or that she is now in his house cooking his food. So he's drawn a lot of attention to himself in this case. In 2019, a home near the crash site was searched. Private investigators conducted underground scans of the home and revealed evidence that the ground under the basement had been disturbed. They also had cadaver dogs search the basement, and both dogs got possible hits. The police had initially searched around this home and every home in the nearby area at the time of the disappearance, with dogs also, and none of those searches gave any evidence to suggest that searches need to be done inside the homes. With this new private hits on this home, local rumors ran wild suggesting that Moira's body or someone else's body was buried in the basement. The new owners of the home allowed police to dig in the basement and search for any evidence or remains. No body was found, and no evidence was found suggesting any involvement in the disappearance of Moira. This disappearance of Maura Murray leads into a spiderweb of theories. All we really know is that a young lady was last seen outside of her crashed car, and 10 minutes later, she vanished. This case took a huge amount of research and led me down a number of rabbit holes, and I could have added in probably 20 more theories and speculations as to what had happened to Moira. Hopefully in the near future we will get a resolution to this mystery, but most importantly for her family so that they can get some closure. I hope Moira is alive and well and maybe living in Canada, but let me know in the comments what you think is most likely to have happened to her. Like the video if you liked it, leave some constructive criticism if you didn't, and be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with all of these strange murders and mysteries. It's a strange world out there, so stay safe.